Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be showing you how to turn a plain MDF blank into a beautiful French clock. For my project today, I'm going to be using this clock plywood kit, and I am going to begin by removing the clock mechanism first. So I'm carefully going to take the hands off the clock first and put them to the side. Then I'm going to remove the little nut that's holding that there using pliers, and also the washer, and then I'm going to put them to the side while I work on my project. Next, I'm going to be applying 2 coats of a cream mineral paint. This paint has a built-in sealer, and because the base that I'm using is already actually pretty close to this color, it did only take 2 coats, as I said, and I also painted the other side as well, as this helps to prevent any warping. I let my 2 coats of mineral paint dry completely, and then I took our Redesign with Prima's new Scarlet Embrace Transfer. This is one of their larger transfer designs. There are 4 pages to this one that connect, but I really loved this selection here with the roses, the different flowers. I thought it would look perfect on my clock. It was actually the perfect size as well. So I'm just working out here exactly how I want it to sit on the clock. Then I'm going to hold it in place as I flip it over, and I'm going to use a lead pencil to draw an outline on the back of the transfer sheet as a guide, so that I can then go in and cut out exactly what I want. Now that I have my transfer ready, I'm going to carefully remove the design from the carrier sheet. I'm going to position it where I want it to go on my clock, and then I'm going to press that down. I'm then going to use a transfer stick to go over the top of the entire project. I do have one hand holding the design in place while I do this. I just want to make sure that it's all stuck down and so that it won't shift. I'm also going to run my transfer stick along the edge where the transfer overlaps with the edge. This is going to help separate the design that's overlapping from the rest of the transfer design. And then I'm going to start lifting up the plastic as I'm rubbing. I did speed this project section up. But as you can see, it is coming off really easily. I'm just making sure that I'm rubbing each section down really well. If I miss a spot, I can lay it back down and continue rubbing. And then I'm going to carefully lift that last piece up. I gently pressed any overlapping sections of the transfer down around the edge, and then I used a piece of the carrier sheet to gently burnish the design, making sure I didn't have any air bubbles. Before moving on to the next step, I used my craft knife to carefully make some little cuts in the center where the clock mechanism needs to go through, and then I used the end of a paintbrush to make sure that was all stuck down well. I'm then using a gloss clear coat over the top of my entire project to seal my transfer and protect that beautiful design. I let that dry completely and then took out Redesign's new Chant Matin H2O Transfer. I really wanted some French typography on my project, and this design is stunning with the gold gilding, so I'm going to have that one up the top. And then I thought it would be fun to add some birds as well to my project. And then I took out the Fleur de Minuit transfer here. This is the H2O transfer as well, and I love this text, so I'm going to cut that out, and then also grab a couple more birds from the first transfer that we cut out. I thought it would be fun to have the birds mark out the different sections of time, the 12, 3, 6, and 9. Now it's time to add my transfers, so I'm going to mist the surface where I want it to go with water, use a wet wipe to spread that moisture. Then I'm going to peel the plastic backing off that design and then press it design side down into that water. I'm also adding a bit more moisture over the top of that with a wet wipe, and also some pressure with a wet wipe too. So I'm just going to repeat the same process, adding moisture to the surface, taking the backing off, and then pressing the design into that water, and then layering more moisture over the top. So you definitely want to be careful, have a hand in place holding your transfer down, And it is best to give it about 3 minutes once you've applied the moisture over the top, just to make sure that the design is completely transferred down. If you miss any areas when you are doing this, you can definitely add a little bit more moisture to your project, especially if perhaps it's quite a hot day. So I'm just working my way around, as you can see, positioning each of those beautiful H2O transfers on my project. I really quite like the idea of having the birds mark out the numbers, but if you wanted, you could use a stencil or something like that to add more numbers to your clock face. I actually don't mind if my clocks don't have numbers on them. As you can see, I'm now adding the final bird transfer on the left there, and then it was time to reveal the design underneath. So I'm carefully removing the backing there to reveal the design underneath, and you'll notice I do have a hand on the left there as I'm peeling with my right, just to keep it in place in case I notice that maybe some of it hasn't completely transferred down. I want to be able to reposition it easily without damaging any of the typography or delicate details. These went on really easily, and I think they look beautiful contrasted with the roses. So I did dry those off, and now I am adding in some more of that gloss clear coat. The gloss is going to help to maintain that stunning gold shine. I wanted to add a bit more dimension to my project, so I took out Redesign's new Bloom and Flutter Mould. I love this mould and the tiny little crowns there. So I'm going to dust the smaller of the crowns with cornstarch, and then I'm working some air dry clay into that and then carefully removing it. I'm going to be casting 4 of these. I'm actually going to be adding them where the numbers go. I wanted to add, as I said, a little bit more depth to my project. So I'm going to add these, and I am painting them with a beautiful luxe gold metallic. Just one coat carefully once they were dry, and then I am going to glue those down with my Sealy's Quickset wood glue. I'm going to be positioning them, as I said, at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 positions, but I decided I would actually sort of angle them. You can see I've got the one on the right there facing towards the center of the clock. So I did also decide to change the top one and flip that around so that it matched the others. I really like a vintage look, so when my glue was dry, I went in with a brown antiquing glaze, and I'm really mainly focusing that glaze in the areas where you can see that cream mineral paint in the background. I'm going to be adding it sparingly. I'm not going in too heavy, and then I'm going to use a wet wipe to dab it back. Dabbing it back will help create little water droplets, which also creates the look of age spots. If you don't like a vintage look, just leave this step out. When that was dry, I went in and added antique gold, the same paint that I added on the crowns. I'm adding it around the outside of the clock, and I'm focusing on the edges. I want a nice gold edge, but I'm also going in a bit heavier and using a downward brushing motion to create a thin gold border that's just peeking up around the outside of the clock and framing it out really nicely. I think it pairs perfectly with the transfers there. I'm also going to be adding that same gold paint to each of the clock hands. I don't need this to be perfect. I want a vintage look. And then when they were dry, I added the clock mechanism back into place and added each of the clock hands in place as well. And as I am adding those, I am also going to be adding a bit more of the gold paint to tidy up any areas where I haven't got the look that I wanted. And as they dry, I'm going to add each of the other hands in sequence there. I could have left it there, but I wanted to add one more thing to add a bit more elegance. So I'm going to add these stick-on pearls. I'm going to be taking one of these and adding it to each of the little crowns that we have around the outside. Each of those little crowns is going to get one of those pearls, and then I also decided I would use them to mark out the numbers in between as well. Now, I did not use any kind of guide for this. I just did it by eye. You could definitely print off a clock face if you were really worried about this. This is mainly going to be a decor piece. So I just wanted sort of a general idea there to help map out the numbers on the clock. You definitely don't need a clock kit to create this project. You could use a wood blank, even a tray together with a clock mechanism and these beautiful Redesign products to get a similar look. And here's how our French floral clock turned out. This was such a fun and easy project. Let me know what you think of this in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, we would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. Thanks for watching.